Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome back to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at the LARGE Pyrite. The J1925L comes with a stonewash blade. It's a button lock. It's got the drop point blade style of the original Pyrite, and yeah, I'm quite liking it. But before we get more into this, I want to remind you about the video I made just before this one. The David Mary custom knives, these little fixed blade knives. And a little correction, the name of this guy is the Bitty Bitey Baby Birdie. I forgot the word birdie at the end of the title of the name of this little knife. If you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. I don't make anything off that video, except for what I get off of YouTube. David Mary is, a friend of mine, and he started making custom knives full-time when COVID started. He was making custom knives before that for a while, but he went full-time then, and I just thought my audience would be interested. One of these knives is about the cost of 2 budget knives, sometimes 1.5 budget knives that I review. So these are not crazy expensive. You can get a custom knife made the way you want it from David Mary Custom right here in Canada. And of course he ships pretty much anywhere in the world where it's legal to ship knives to, which is just about everywhere. So check out that video and check out David Mary. Check out his custom knives. Now let's get to the tabletop and we'll take a good close look at this big bad boy. First thing that I'm going to say about this knife is that Artisan Cutlery / CJRB sent this knife to me, and so I did not buy this knife, but I'm going to give it as fair a review as I possibly can. And oh, I need to wipe that down. It's a little bit dirty from use, and that doesn't quite give it a fair representation on the video, does it? It's a little bit cleaner there. I am a big fan of drop point blades, and I really like stonewash. I really like thumb studs, and I like locking folders. So this knife has got a lot going for it. Specifically, I like this blade shape. It's got a high flat grind. Effectively, it's a full flat grind. You got a little bit of a flat area up here, just enough so that if you use a guided sharpening system that has to clamp on the knife, that's great. You can hold it centered nicely. It's got a decent tip, if you got to do puncturing work. But what I really like is we've got a thin edge, sharpened fairly well, and it slices and cuts wonderfully. This is a really good knife. The steel AR RPM 9, which Artisan Cutlery CJRB has been using almost exclusively for, at least for their budget knives, for a while. And they've done a great job with this thing. Badging is just tiny. On this side, it's J1925L, AR RPM 9 right there on the Ricasso. And on this side, they put the CJRB down there on the Ricasso. I really, really like that instead of on the main bevel. The brand name, it's important, and I like that the brand name's on there, but I like that it's not in your face. So anybody who wants to know who made this knife can tell pretty quickly, but it's not, obnoxious. Button lock. Yeah, it's a button lock knife like the Pyrite has been from the start, which is quite nice. Whoop. There you go. And the action's quite good. You can see the button lock right in there. I like the thumb studs. It's right and left friendly. Really easy to get in there and access the thumb stud and deploy the blade. So that's really nice. It's almost ambidextrous. Left hand using the button lock is a little bit different since you got to use, one of your fingers, and you have to think about the safety a little bit more. But if you're left-handed, you can certainly get used to that. I grew up left-handed, and it's working just fine. Although I do like a button lock actuated by the thumb a little bit better, so it's not fully left ambidextrous, but it's quite good. Nice jimping. Could the jimping come a little further? Well, Jake says yes. Jake always says yes, doesn't he? And the reason for that is there's one a thing about this knife that I would change. I'm not calling it a con, but I would change it. This section here, is that supposed to be a forward choil or is that a sharpener's choil? If it just came, 3 or 4 millimeters further, not even a quarter of an inch less of the cutting edge, more room in there, then it'd be very easy to always safely get your finger in there. And then I'd like just a little bit more jimping. But if you're never going to reach in there and do that, this jimping's totally fine the way it is. If I stretch out all the way, I'm still engaging, over half of those points to get a little bit extra grippiness right there. But I really think that this could have been quite a bit better, without that. Now, if you've got smaller hands than I do, then maybe it's no problem for you to get your finger in there, and that's fine. But then you might find the rest of it just a little bit out of proportion for your hands. But who knows? You do you, right? As they say, you do you. I would just like a little bit more here. Now, I wouldn't do it on my own because I'd have to get rid of some of the stonewash finish to grind that back. And then it might not look as good as it does now, but who knows? Maybe sometime in the future. But that's one thing that I would change. Like I said, button lock, we've got steel liners here that are highly skeletonized, and I will take it apart and show you. You can get it with this green micarta. This is sort of like a deeper forest green. It's not like an OD green. It's more like a muted forest green with the texture that micarta gives you, which I'm really, really fond of. You can also get it with G10 in black, or you can get an all steel version that, doesn't have separate handle scales. The liners and the handle scales are one piece. And in some places, this all steel version is less money than the G10 or the micarta. But usually the G10 is a little bit cheaper than any of the other ways of getting it. And I'll go over all the prices in just a little while. The liners are not the liners are proud. The handle scales are inset a little bit. Very comfortable, no crisp edges, nothing sharp anywhere. Very nice in hand. I like that. It's got a little bit of a radius here, just to help fit in the hand. This is a bigger knife, and I'll do all the measurements in a minute. We've got T8 pivot screw. We've got T8 body screws. Now, they are also button screws, which I'd prefer if they weren't button screws, but I'm very glad that those are T8, and that's a T8. We do have T6 screws here on the pocket clip. Now, the pocket clip is a nice pocket clip. Looks good, it's functional, strong, and you shouldn't have to move it very often because you don't need to move it to take it apart, because you can take out these screws, along with the pivot screw and take it apart. So, yeah, it's acceptable. I'm not a big fan of T6. Let's see if those screws are very nicely made. Let's see how much play there is in there. Just a little bit of play in there. How about this body screw? Not much play in that screw either, just a little bit. And in the T6s right there, there's not much play, so that's good. You don't get a lot of depth in those flat screws, because there are those flush screws right there. Let's focus, there you go. So it's okay. I do like that the left side option here, it's nicely done. It's not, leaving a big scar on the face of the knife, but clearly you can put the pocket clip on that side if you want to. And let's see how well that pocket clip goes into the pocket. Got my stand-in pocket right here. Climbs over the edge. It's a good pocket clip, and the knife hides fairly well. Keeps the knife in your pocket, keeps it fairly well hidden. I like it. Stonewash finish. That's my favorite finish on a knife. And get it to focus here. There we go. If the light hits it just right. It's a beautiful stonewash finish. Very fond of that. And I already talked about how thin the edge is. And a few more finesse things. How's the action? The action's nice and smooth. No blade play, side to side, up and down. And it's still, very smooth action. The ball bearings just take the blade and let it shut when there's no tension from the lock there. The lock's got a little bit of stickiness to it, very little, just a very minor bit. I haven't fully broken it in yet. Over time that'll break in nice and smooth, and it's quite smooth already, and it's going to get even better, you know, as I work it. You can deploy the knife by releasing the lock and just giving it a bit of wrist flick like that. I know you can't see the whole thing. I'm zoomed in too far, I guess, or you can use the thumb stud for that. So really good action in there. Like I said, no blade play, up and down, side to side, and I'm very happy with that, how that works. The alignment when it's closed, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. You can't really get that much better than that, especially for the price of this knife. It's totally acceptable for that. Open pillar construction with those hourglass step-shaped pins in there, and nice big lanyard hole in a decent position. So yeah, there you go. Let's take this thing apart and see how it's constructed. First off, here's the screws. I've taken them out. Here we go. Here's the ball bearings. What do we got? 3, 6, 9, 10 ball bearings in there, so that's quite good. That's nice. We've got a little bit of a D-shaped pin, so that means there's going to be a D shape. Yeah, right there. There it is. Look at all that skeletonizing on these liners. Lots and lots. 5 triangles out on each side. Helps keep it nice and tight. That's how easily it's constructed. The pivot pin, like I said, it doesn't spin because of the D shape in this side right here. So this side here, it's got a completely round hole, and the pin is just D-shaped. Where is it? Right there at the end. So I like that's got a fully round spot where the blade pivots on. I'm going to lube this up, put it back together again, and we'll keep going with this review. We'll keep going with this review. Before we go to all the dimensions, how about the price of this thing? Well, you can get it directly from CJRB. ArtisanCutlery.net. I've got a link down below. You can save 10% on your first purchase from them. They're $59.99 for the G10, $63.74 for this one, and $63.74 for the steel version as well. White Mountain Knives has got the G10 for $69.99. Take off 10% with coupon code CCE. That gets it to $62.99. The other two, this micarta and the steel one, are $79.99 regularly, 10% off, $71.99. So a little bit more than it is at ArtisanCutlery.net. But if you trust White Mountain Knives, then that's where you want to buy it, from an American retailer. Or from Amazon, they've got some weird prices. I can't read my handwriting. I think it's $64.99 for the G10, $65.99 for the micarta, and $58.49 for the steel. $58.49 for the steel one. I guess the steel one's not selling very well, and so the price is going down on Amazon for that one. So yeah, within a few bucks. But if you're in Canada, Blades Canada's got all 3 versions, and with the exchange rate, there's no reason to go outside of Canada to buy these. Just get them from Blades Canada. That's Warriors and Wonders. $76.99 for the G10, and the micarta and the steel version are $79.99 Canadian dollars. Now let's go over all the dimension sizes and that stuff. The weight of this knife is 99 grams. So that's 3.49 ounces, so just under 3.5 ounces. The factory sharpness for this guy, I got a score of 145 best on my sharpness tester, which is right at average for the knives that I review, so that's pretty good. The cutting edge length, 88.1 millimeters, 3.47 inches. Blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, on the liners that is, 93.2 millimeters, 3.67 inches. The thickness of the blade stock here at the back, 2.69 millimeters, 0.1055, so just over a tenth of an inch thick. The blade depth, its widest right about, actually here at the heel, got a little hair in there. That is 30.4 millimeters, 1.2 inches. So yeah, nice deep blade, which is really good for slicing because that thinness happens so gradually. And it's pretty thin at the edge. 0.44 millimeters, 17 thousandths on average, for the thinness just behind the edge grind. Very good. The angle of the edge grind, it's a bit variable, but the averages are 17.1 degrees on this side, 18.5 degrees on this side. Started at 19.1 here, went to 15.7 in the middle, 20.7 degrees here at the tip, 5 degrees of variability along the length. This side also had 5 degrees of variability along it. It started at 15.4 degrees, 15.6 degrees right about here, and then at the end 20.4 degrees. So, you know, pretty standard factory sharpening for a knife in this price range. The handle length, 127.6 millimeters, 5.02 inches. The grip area, from here, not counting this forward choil kind of thing, about 11 centimeters, about 4 1/3 inches. Big handle. The thickness of the handle scales, 10.82 millimeters. That's 0.426 of an inch. Nice and thin handle, yet quite grippy because of that G10. Micarta. The G10 should be okay as well. I don't know if I'd buy the steel version because I think it would be a little slick in my hand. But hey, that's maybe just me. You tell me in the comments below if you've got all steel version and you really like it. The handle depth, that's this measurement. Where is it widest within the grip? Well, it's right there and right there. It's about very much the same. 26.4 millimeters, 1.04 inches. And when the knife is closed, the widest point's pretty much in the middle. 34.8 millimeters, 1.37 inches. And the total length, it's about 221 millimeters, 8.7 inches. So yeah, it's a big knife. What do I think of this knife overall? My summary, I like it. I like it a lot. For a knife that is, you know, in the price range that is acceptable for a budget knife, you know, just barely, but low 60s, that's pretty good. And it feels good. It's light. We've got a great blade shape, very usable. It cuts and slices very well. It's decently thin behind the edge. You know, the little bit wonky sharpening, that's pretty standard. I can sharpen it myself. Hopefully you can too and get that exact angle that you want. And then, hey, it's still thin behind the edge, so that's great. Big blade, good for doing a lot of basic prep. I would like this to be a bigger forward choil. That would be nice for sometimes you want to do some really precise work or you really need to push down and you want the weight of your hand right underneath it. Well, when you're gripping down here, you don't have that. Your thumb's sort of off to the side a bit. So that's one little change I would make. Everything else looks really good. You've got good blade centering, good action, tiny bit of lock stick, which is expected on a new knife, a new button lock. You know, some of them are really smooth from the factory, but you know, all I've done so far after testing it now, I lubricated it and let me see, open it really hard. The lock stick is mostly gone. And that's just from using a little bit of excellent lubrication and putting that onto the knife. I really like this Gunny Glide. And yeah, it's most of that stickiness is gone. That's really nice. And yeah, good action. I like the T8 screws. For the most part, you know, I'm not fond of button screws recessed into material because it leaves an edge. You know, but that's being really picky indeed. Yeah, that's about all I got. Like, this is a nice knife. If you're in the market for this, go ahead and get one. I've got links down below. And before I forget, when I'm signing off, yes, this is the 3rd, if it'll focus on my watch. There you go, Wednesday the 3rd. I haven't yet, you know, gone to the work of using my random checker to see who the winner is of my supporters. I'll have to do that tomorrow morning or later on this evening or something. We'll see. My wife already got home from work, and so I'm not going to be doing any more work on this after I finish hitting record for today. But we'll find out who the winner is of my supporters. If you want to support the channel, patreon.com/CCE or click join down below. And you might win a knife, and we're going to find out who the winner is of the next knife very soon. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.